Okay, each week I'm going to present about a 10-minute video, just sort of laying out the groundwork, the framework for what we're going to be handling on that particular week. The purpose of these videos is not going to be to go into extensive detail. The book provides plenty of detail. Certain situations I might provide details if something is confusing. But for the most part, I just wanted to give some of the big ideas and give a little bit of the background. And so here we go with the week 1 video. You will find these particular notes that I'm going over. You will find them in Angel. And so you're free certainly to copy those off if you choose to. First thing you see here is HR. And under HR I have people and system. And the reason why I want to point that out is just when we think HR, when we say HR, human resources, we literally could mean two different things. When we say HR, we could actually be talking about people, so we could be talking about the actual literal people that work for a company. Or when we say HR, we could be talking about the HR system. In this particular class, we'll actually be talking about both. We'll be talking about, in some cases, the actual people that do the work, and then we'll also be talking about the system. And really both are equally important, and you'll see here in a second what we mean by that. When we talk about the HR system, we're going to be talking about several specific functions. We're going to be talking about something called HR planning. We're going to be talking about something called job analysis. We're going to be talking about recruitment, selection, training, compensation. I left out performance appraisal. So after training, performance appraisal, and then compensation. So once again, HR planning, job analysis, recruitment, selection, training, performance appraisal, and then compensation. And if you look in your book, you'll see that that's pretty much how the chapters are laid out, give or take a few extra chapters that they've stuck in. We'll also be talking about some things like unions and employee discipline. But it's a whole system. And you will see as we go through the class how each of those pieces truly fit together. We recruit people. After we recruit people, we then select from those people. After we select from those people, we have to train those people. After we train them, we set them free to work in the organization, and then at some point in time there's going to be performance appraisal. After we have done the performance appraisal, we will adjust compensation accordingly in many cases. So as I said, it's very much a system where the pieces fit together. And that is how your book is organized, like I said, with a few other chapters sort of thrown in here and there. Strategic HR. More and more recently, there has been talk of how HR is strategic. I'm a member of something called the Society for Human Resources Management, and that is called SHRM, Society for Human Resource Management, and the website is actually shrm.org. I believe chapter 1 of your book talked quite a bit about SHRM and the different certifications that are available, and I will tell you that I would highly encourage you, if you're interested in the field of HR, and if you want to pursue a job in HR, that you might at some point want to consider a PHR certification. That sounds for Professional Human Resources, that's offered by SHRM. And that is a well-known designation and a highly regarded designation. They also have something called the SPHR, which is the Senior Professional Human Resources, which is, I guess, you could say a little bit a step up from the PHR, and is also certainly a well-regarded designation. But SHRM, one of the things that they really push for is this notion that HR is strategic. And what they mean by that is oftentimes we think of HR and the HR department as merely sort of a support function. But we really need to think of HR as being more than just a support function. In fact, we need to really think of HR as a department that really needs a seat at the boardroom table. That if you think about an organization, that HR really is the lifeblood. And that's not overstating it. HR truly is the lifeblood of an organization. HR, in terms of the people, right? The people are the lifeblood of the organization. But think about it. Even if you have great people in an organization, but you've got ineffective training and compensation and ineffective discipline procedures, etc., ineffective development, your organization is really not going to be nearly as effective as you want it to be. That people and effective HR truly are at the center of effective organizations. Let's think of companies in our particular country right now that are at the absolute tops of their industries. And obviously a company like an Apple or a Google would come to mind. These are companies that are just dominant in their industries. Well, what makes them dominant in their industries? Obviously a number of factors, but really when you get down to the root of it, it is the people. Organizations are more than just buildings. They're more than just technology. It is people within those buildings. It's people that's operating that technology. And so what is taking place at Apple and Google and other major companies around the country and around our world is that these are people. These are people who are performing at very, very high levels. And so certainly as we see it is the people, but also the systems. Those people would not be performing as highly as they could be if there were not effective HR systems in place to organize them and train them and motivate them, et cetera, et cetera. Apple and the Googles of the world have to be able to maintain those people. And also, Apple and Google had to be able to select those people to begin with, right? I mean, how is it that Apple and Google selected and hired these people and their competitors did not? So just the recruiting and selection processes. So once again, strategic HR. HR is not just a support function. It is integral to the success of a company. I'm a huge sports fan. And if you think about sports teams generally are effective because they have the best personnel, or some of the top personnel. Sometimes the best team doesn't always win the championship, but generally the team that does win is pretty darn good in terms of their personnel. Well, what is it about that team that they were able to recruit and select those people, and they also had to train them? So it's not just the people; it's the system. You see this resource-based model that's mentioned here in the notes. The reason why I put that there is a resource-based model is a model from the field of strategic management. And this particular model has been around, I guess really in earnest about 30 years now, this resource-based model. And what it says, there are certain resources in an organization, and they call these resources distinctive competencies, that enable companies to have a competitive advantage. In other words, there are certain resources that enable companies to be successful. And for a couple of decades, there was all sorts of articles and research dealing with the different types of resources that could allow companies to be successful. Obviously, there was research on things like technology and leadership and culture, and those are all fine and dandy. But about a decade ago, about 10 years ago, the fellow who founded this particular model and really made it popular, a fellow with the last name Barney, wrote an article, and he basically said when you get down to it, the root of all companies' success really is the people. When you talk about leadership and culture, what is that? That's people. When you talk about teamwork, what is that? Well, that's people. When you talk about information technology, who is it that develops that technology and uses that technology? It's people. So this model, this resource-based model, which is from the field of strategy, it in and of itself, it is realizing the importance of HR. So it's not just HR jumping up and down, waving its hands, saying, look at us, we're important, we're important for strategy. It's even strategy looking back saying, HR is really important to us as well. Just want to briefly lay out some current factors in the environment of human resource management. The first one you see there is legal and political factors. As you're going to see throughout this course, pretty much in every chapter, you can't understand HR unless you have a feel for the legal aspects. Now that's not the sheer reason that HR exists. I know sometimes in companies it seems like that HR merely exists to keep us out of hot water. And that is not the sole reason they exist, but obviously that is part of what they do. HR needs to be aware of sort of the do's and don'ts, and not just the do's and don'ts of the federal government, but also the do's and don'ts of state and local governments as well. And we're going to get into that much more. As you see there, economic and employment shifts. For decades and decades we were a manufacturing economy, and now we are a service economy. Being a service economy just means that employees will need a different set of skills to operate in a service economy. Education and training, and this goes hand in hand with number 2. Close to half the U.S. workforce, at any point in time, close to half the U.S. workforce needs or will need new training. And you can think about this in your own life. Just as we start getting familiar with a piece of technology, a particular piece of software, something new comes out. So we are in a perpetual state of training to some degree. Organizational restructuring. Organizations have frequently downscoped, downsized, merged, been acquired, vertically integrated, outsourced, re-engineered. You do not need to know all those per se. The point is that organizations keep changing. They keep getting leaner and meaner and just contorting themselves in all different sorts of ways in the face of new competition from around the world. And so what that tells us is that we need HR who are very flexible, HR that can sort of roll with the punches and adapt. That's just a fact of life. Demographics and diversity. Almost 1/3 of U.S. workers are members of a racial minority. Women comprise nearly 50% of the workforce. And as you see there, the workforce is also growing considerably older. We talk about diversity and how people need to be sensitive to others, and that is just a fact of life. We live in organizations where there's folks certainly that just have different points of view than us. They come from totally different racial, ethnic, national, religious backgrounds. And so in many cases, it's not just purely being sensitive merely for the sake of being sensitive. It is a matter of law. We need to do that. It is a matter of business necessity. If the organization is going to function efficiently, we must get along. And certainly, I think certainly as Christians, it is our duty to treat others with love and respect. As we know, Jesus certainly encountered folks from many different cultures and beliefs, and was a model of how to treat your fellow man. Work and family. Workforce consists of a growing number of dual income and single parent families, and so there are different benefit packages that employees might be desiring these days they didn't necessarily need to have in the past. Lastly, number 7 is cultural. Just culture, just in terms of nationalities, but also, as we know, our society just changes. What is acceptable at some period of time is not necessarily acceptable in other periods of time, and vice versa. And so we as organizations need to be mindful of the different societal values and adapt accordingly. That's not to say that as a company we necessarily compromise our values, but certainly to be aware of society's values and how we operate within society. Let me actually jump real quick up there to demographics and diversity. The fact that the workforce is growing considerably older. You've probably heard this term at some point in time, the brain drain. The notion of the brain drain is just that we've got this massive generation of baby boomers who are retiring, by the millions every year. This is a highly educated group of individuals. They have been the backbone of our economy for a couple of decades, our workforce. As they retire, they will leave a void. They are such a large generation, they will leave a void, particularly in certain areas such as the natural sciences, fields such as chemistry, engineering, etc. Those are fields that we just have not had a lot of graduates in recent years. And so companies need to find ways to transition once the baby boomers retire. They need to find ways to replace them. They need to find ways to, in some cases, keep those baby boomers from retiring. And certainly there are baby boomers who are going to desire to stick around for social reasons, but also just for economic reasons. So anyway, brief synopsis of some of what you'll encounter here in these first couple chapters. And I hope this helps. And if you have any questions while doing your reading, feel free to contact me. Thank you.